Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Pints and Quarts, a show brought to you by Craft Beer Nation. Tonight, we're going to be talking with a very fun brewery out of Denver, Colorado, and it's fitting because GABF is just right around the corner, and these guys are going to be pouring there. So we're going to be talking with Strange Craft Beer Company out of Denver, Colorado, and their owner, Tim Myers. So you want to stick around. You want to find out what they're doing because they do some really cool stuff in the city of Denver. And before we get started, I want to direct you to our social media platforms. We're posting. Gil is killing it on Instagram, posting all kind of videos and good stuff. And you can find us on Instagram at Craft Beer Nation. We're on Twitter at Craft B Nation. We're on Google Plus, and of course, you can find us on Facebook at Craft Beer Nation. So pour that beer in a glass and get comfortable, and come back and listen to hear what Tim has to say about what's going on at Strange Craft Beer Company. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Tonight we have a fun one lined up, or at least I already feel like it's going to be fun just based on the pre-show. I had a good time just warming it up. But before we introduce our guests, I want to introduce you to my co-host of tonight, Gil Mello. Gil, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome. Enjoying some awesome beer. So hey, can't be better, right?
Right, worst places you could be, right?
Yeah, worst place I can be. Well, it's going to be better when I have the second one. So
that. And I think you're actually drinking a Strange craft beer.
Yeah, they're big malty. I'm on the second one, almost done already. It looks beautiful, nice lacing. Look at that beer. Look at that lacing. So that's a picture worth beer right there. And
can you hold that label? Can you hold the bottle up one more time so we can check that label out?
That's their winter warm, and then Tim can talk more about that. But as you can see, their labels are just something a
lot of fun.
That's fun on their own.
All right. Well, speaking of Tim, let me introduce our guest, Tim Myers, who's the head honcho, the head keg washer, the chief barman, the chief everything, because he's the head of the machine. Tim Myers, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Rand. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you carving out some of your time to spend with little old us, because we are excited to learn some more about strange beer, about what you guys are doing.
I'm happy in Denver. We're talking beer. That's my favorite subject. So
awesome. Well, let's jump right into it, man. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself. How did your love affair with craft beer get started?
Well, I'm pretty lucky. The first batch of beer I ever brewed was for my wedding, and it was my wife's idea. So when I'm working at the brewery 70, 80 hours, especially like next week with JBF in town, I can always remind her that it was her idea. So that's pretty sweet. And that was way back in 97. So I've been home brewing for a while. But in 2009, I was working at the Rocky Mountain News as the IT manager, and the newspaper shut down right in the middle of the Great Recession. And instead of going out and getting in line with everybody else looking for another job, I decided to go pro and open Strange Craft Beer Company. And so 6 years later, Plan B is doing pretty good.
Let me get this right. Your first batch of beer was served at your wedding.
Exactly. Tim and Marnie's Hitchin' Brew, I think we called it.
You're feeling yourself there, huh? You're feeling a little confident in your skills there, were you?
Yeah, well, we went to a brew on premise, so let's get something straight. I used somebody else's recipe and somebody else's equipment.
Okay.
The whole process just mystified me, and it was amazing to hand make something and then throw it in bottles, serve it to friends, and have them enjoy it. See the look on their face when they take a sip, and I love doing that for a living now.
Tim, and I definitely feel you there, because the thing that I love about craft beer is that you can take 4 simple ingredients and you can make a liquid that people will deem fine enough to spend their money on. And this same liquid can make somebody go from having one of the worst days that they've ever had to having one of the best days that they've ever had. I think that's the beautiful thing about craft beer.
That's exactly it. When you hand somebody a beer across the bar and they take their first sip and you see the look on their face change and, you know, their mouth kind of forms, oh, and the smile starts to form, wow, that's really good. And that's a great feeling.
Makes it worth it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And it's a complex drink. I mean, people think they have the wrong idea how beer is, but beer is just, as flavor goes, is so complex and so wide range. It's so amazing.
And that's the exciting part about it. You know, my wife is the artist of the family, but she enjoys beer is my creative outlet. I'll throw some ingredients in a beer because I'll get inspired, or I'll have a meal at a restaurant and I'll think, I'll taste an ingredient and I'll say that would go great in this style of beer. And then that's my artistic release. My wife loves the fact that I get to be creative that way, and it doesn't have to be, well, you put this ingredient, this ingredient, this ingredient in, you brew it at this temperature, and you ferment it. There's so many different options and ways that you can make beer that the creative opportunities are endless.
Well, Tim, I'll tell you this, just between me and you, okay? There's somebody else in this panel who's been dreaming of a beer made after a certain hazelnut and chocolate spread. I'm not going to say Nutella, but there's somebody in this panel who's been dreaming about a hazelnut and chocolate spread stout or porter or something. So,
I'm flying whatever your brewery is for that beer.
I see a One Barrel Wednesday in our future, Gil. We like to do experimentals Wednesday. We opened on a one barrel system, and when we upgraded to a 10 because we just couldn't keep up on the one barrel, we held on to it, and we'll pick some ingredients and we'll put a recipe together, and sometimes it turns out great, sometimes not so much. But yeah, we could make. I could see us making a chocolate hazelnut. We'd probably throw the hazelnuts in the mash to start. See what kind of character we get out of that, and then if we had to throw some in the boil too, we could do that.
See, look at him. He's smiling.
You've got to find a Wednesday that works for you, Gil.
Look at that guy. Look at him. Look at him. Hold on. Look at this guy. He's smiling. His cheeks are turning red right now. He's getting rosy. So okay. So you mentioned your brew house, and I want to talk about that. But before we get there, so you said you basically got the ship started in 2009, right?
Yes.
2009. I imagine the Denver craft beer scene was already pretty mature, I would say. I mean, it's still growing, but it's also kind of mature. You guys have history in Denver.
In 2009, we only had about a dozen breweries in the city limits.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And now we have almost 70.
So what was your aim? What did you want to do? I mean, everybody, at least I like to think, everybody comes into the game wanting to do something a little bit different. They want to have their own shtick, right? What did you do? What was your goal? How did you want to differentiate yourself from other breweries in the market? The other dozen, I guess, that were already there in Denver.
I think one of the things that we investigated was the option of not necessarily having a flagship beer. Could we experiment? Could we rotate recipes in? The second year we were open, 2011, we brewed 65 different recipes. And the exciting part about that was you got to serve all those different beers to people across the bar in the tasting room, get their direct feedback. What do you like about this beer? What doesn't work for you in this beer? And from that, we started narrowing it down a little because you can only have 65 different beers on tap so often before you start burning out your bartenders. But the fun part about it was we didn't have to, here's our flagship beer, drink it this way, drink it that way. And because we only had the tasting room, we didn't have to worry about, can this beer be packaged? What's the shelf life in a 6-pack for this beer? We're serving it fresh out of kegs. We usually burn through a 1-barrel batch in 9-10 days with 8 beers on tap. So we were able to turn it over, keep track, because at the time there was only my partner and myself and a couple of friends helping us out. So we were brewing it all day and then hanging out behind the bar pouring it that night. So we got the feedback direct. I didn't even have to ask the bartender what the customers thought about the beer.
So is that an approach that you still adopt? Do you still kind of, gauge your customers' opinions on what worked for this beer, what didn't, so you can, because they are the ones that drive your business, right? They're the ones that
exactly. And that's the I think that's the epitome of a tasting room model versus a packaging model versus even a brew pub model. Tough part about a brew pub is you also got a restaurant to run. And you're pairing up those beers to your menu, and hopefully you give the brewmaster some leeway so he can create something new every once in a while. But with the tasting room, we don't necessarily have to have this beer out on this day, or that beer has to stay on tap. We can rotate them out and say, I'm sorry we don't have the cherry stout anymore, but here, try this collab we brewed with Epic, where we combined a barrel-aged chocolate coffee stout with our Cherry Creek and made an imperial cherry stout. That's the fun part, is you're not hemmed in, you're not narrowed in your focus. You can try this, try that. Something comes to mind, go ahead and try it.
So everything you do right now is in bumpers, or you do other kind of vessels? You do cans at all right now?
No canning as yet. Just the 22-ounce bombers, kegs to bars and restaurants, and pints across the bar.
Awesome.
So So you mentioned going back a little earlier. You said you guys started on a 1-barrel system, and I think you said you just upgraded to a 10-barrel system, right? So, what was your output, or I take it back? What's your projected output for 2016?
So 2016 we'll do about 750 barrels. So we usually brew once or twice a week on the 10-barrel system, plus 2 to 4 times a month on the 1-barrel, coming up with new recipes. We'll also take one of the 10-barrel batches out. We'll pull a barrel out of that and play with it. We don't necessarily have to brew 1 barrel on the 1-barrel system. We can steal a barrel off the 10 and let's make a variation. But the first year we were open, we only brewed 100 barrels. Second year was only, I think we were close to 300. But we had to brew 3 times on Monday to fill one of our 3-barrel fermenters, and twice on Tuesday to fill 2 1-barrel fermenters. So 27 hours of brewing, we had 150 gallons total.
Well, I think it's good. Because it sounds like you guys have, Denver. I don't want to say it's saturated, but you got a lot of breweries there, and you guys seem to be having good, controlled growth, which is what you want.
Yeah, my goal is not to get to 700,000 barrels. I am pretty. If we get up to around 1,200 barrels, I'll probably think we've reached beer nirvana over at Strangecraft, because that means we're getting our beer in another couple of thousand people's hands that haven't had it already. And on a regular basis, I still have time for my family, which is, like I say, is my my biggest priority. But if we got up to 1,200 barrels, I would consider myself a huge success.
Well,
awesome.
You recently did a kind of an expansion kind of thing, didn't you? I thought.
We snagged the space next door, so we went from 1,700 square feet to 3,500 square feet. And the space next door ended up being mostly warehouse and extra storage. Okay. The brew house stayed the same size. The tasting room stayed the same size. But now we don't have to stack bags of grain in between the fermenters like we used to do. The cold room, we were able to double in size so we can store beers, store kegs a little longer. And we needed space to store all those bombers, empty or full.
Yeah. Do you guys do any crowlers on premises, or strictly?
The guys up at Oscar Blues have been bugging me to get that crowler in there, and I'm pretty sure they'll just keep bugging me until I do. But so far, we just have the growlers.
Well, you can bug them right back and tell them once you bring the price down, I'll think about it.
Yeah, my bartenders look at me and they give me that stink eye. Don't you give me one more thing to fit.
I've been the crowlers are so I'm in Virginia, and crowlers are very popular here. And sometimes on busy Saturdays, I look at the bar staff, and they're hustling, filling crowlers, and you could tell that most of them would rather not have to deal with a crowler machine. But I mean, it's popular. It's hard to deny the success of the vessel, right? I mean,
I would much rather carry a crowler than a growler if I'm going, especially in Colorado, hitting the high country, going backpacking. Outdoors is big here, and carrying a big glass bottle is not the best solution.
Pack it in, pack it out.
Yeah.
So you guys, speaking of Colorado, and I think I mentioned GABF earlier, you guys are going to be pouring at GABF this year, right? Have you been at GABF every year since you've been open?
GABF is a huge opportunity for us, mostly because we are in Denver, and there's going to be tens of thousands of people in town that week for the festival. But it allows us the unique opportunity to get in front of 10,000 people over 4 sessions, 20,000 people maybe, get our beer in their hands and let the beer do the talking, let the beer describe itself. Somebody gets a glass of Cherry Creek in their hand, they see the bright red, they take a sip of it. I can spend 1,000 words describing it, or they can spend 10, 20 seconds taking a sip of it and exploring it and enjoying it. And it's much more valuable. So to be able to get in front of that many people is huge for us. If we take home some hardware, that's great. That's not the reason we're there. That's just frosting on the cake. But to get in front of all those people, phenomenal.
So undeniably, there's a huge bump in patronage at your tasting room during GABF week, right?
Oh yes. Yeah, it's our busiest week of the year. We've spent the last couple of months getting ready for it.
I will be there, just so you know.
You let me know, and I will be there, and we'll take the nickel tour, and maybe we'll go and back and bust out some beers that I don't serve right now, and we'll have some fun.
So
looking forward to it.
Do you guys just came out? Do you have a pumpkin beer out right now?
What's that?
Something you do? Do you have your pumpkin beer out right now?
Yeah, we just bottled it today. We bottled it this morning. In fact, that's what I'm drinking right now. Let me see if I can get the label up to the camera there. Can you see that?
Yep.
There you go, pumpkin porter.
Our headless horseman right there. So you notice these labels are kind of unique. You notice that with the 1,000 or with the big malty. That we were really lucky. One of our regulars is local artist Dave Palmer, and he just kind of has that unique look. And before we even opened the brewery, that was one of the things I knew I wanted. If we ever packaged, I wanted a local artist, unique look, stand out on the shelves, and Dave does a great job with those fun characters that he paints for us. It's really, really fun.
So, Tim, I want to ask you a question a little bit about. I read an article, actually just yesterday, or actually it might have been this morning. I'm not sure. Not so much about Strange Craft Beer Company, but about the industry as a whole. The article spoke to, and I feel like we've been talking about this for the last 2 or 3 years, but the article spoke to the number of craft breweries in the country. Right, we're at 4,000 plus, and we've been talking about hop shortages for the last 3 years. I feel like, and so I'm beginning to wonder, like, is the hop shortage really a real thing? Because my theory is that the American way is that people with means don't let opportunities pass them by. If there's a hop shortage, people who have the money to do so will buy up acreage and will plant hops because there's a profit opportunity there for farmers. Is, in your opinion, the hop shortage a real legitimate thing? And do you foresee yourself feeling if it is, do you foresee yourself feeling the impacts of that here pretty soon?
I think there was definitely a point in time where the craft beer craze and the craft beer explosion was making it extremely difficult to get some varieties of hops. It takes 3 to 4 years to plant a hop yard and really get the production rolling. The craft beer explosion in the last 4 years has resulted in a huge explosion in acreage, and we've never had more acres of hops in Colorado. I think I read an article recently talking about how we're in the top 4 for acreage in the country now. But those farms that have planted those acres, they didn't plant them beginning of this season. They planted them 3 years ago, and they're just now hops to be viable. But I think if there are hops that brewers are having trouble getting now, I mean, there's some hops. If there's the latest and greatest, like Mandarina Bavaria, mm-hmm. I might brew one beer with that, just a 1 barrel. I'll get like 5 pounds and I'll brew a batch. I'm not gonna make my #1 selling beer with that hop because it's a pain in the butt to get. You know, supplies are limited. It's a new variety. I'm going to focus on some hops that I can get plenty of, and reduce my risk of coming up short. And then I'm contracted out on some of my most important hops to 2022 right now, which is insane that you have to plan that far ahead. But if you want that hop, there are ways that you can go and get it.
So speaking of, hard to get hops, I like to think that Galaxy is a relatively hard to get hop right now because of its explosion. I think the IPA palette across the country is shifting more away. I mean, nothing against our West Coast friends because the West Coast IPA is still a very legitimate style, but I think the hop palettes for IPAs are kind of shifting more towards more and more flavor, right? That's why we see the prevalence of the New England style IPA, right? The hazy style beer that focuses on flavor more so than bitterness. You guys have a smash beer, your Nebulous. We were speaking in the pre-show. That's mm-hmm. It's a smash beer, and the hop using that beer is Galaxy. Have you been having any trouble maybe finding Galaxy hops at all?
And I don't have a contract on that one, so that makes me nervous. I have to plan like a month in advance before the next brew of that beer to make sure that I can have enough, because there's almost 22 pounds per 10-barrel batch. So if I don't have that scheduled ahead of time, I can't make that beer. Now, am I going to shut down? No, I got to come up with something else so that my Nebulous drinkers don't lynch me. Because you get regulars that love specific beers and they get really upset when they don't have it.
Is that something you struggle a lot, like between like things you want to do and things your patrons want? Is that something you can balance
it becomes a conversation, but then you talk to them about it, and then they admit that they like 3 or 4 other beers too. And you pour them your 1 barrel Wednesday test and think, wow, that's really good. So you got to work with your customers on that. But yeah, you always know you're going to disappoint somebody when you can't get it. But what I do personally is I'll get a large, I have a large contract on Simcoe. I have a large contract on Amarillo. And those are 2 hops that are always tradable. And you say, hey, anybody need 44 pounds Simcoe? I need 44 pounds of Galaxy. Let's make a deal. And with Lupulin Exchange on the internet, with Pro Brewer on the internet, with the Brewer Associations, BA Forum, I usually end up getting like 20 emails after I've already made the trade saying, hey, man, you still got some more Simcoe? I got some Galaxy. I really need some Simcoe. So there's options out there. There's options. And if people are having trouble getting hops, I would recommend that you look at one of those 3 options, and you should be okay.
You mentioned something about internet going. I have a theory that partially, I don't want to say that's the reason, but I think that the internet, social media, and all those things has helped a lot of craft beer be known. It was able to get people like me that thought for a while I was the only one drinking craft beer to meet other people. And do you think that internet, social media was actually a big relevant part of what we're going through craft beer right now?
I think it allows the craft beer drinker to explore ahead of time. Randy, if you're coming out to Denver, let's go online and see what new breweries are around that you might want to go see.
Absolutely, for sure.
On the internet in like 30 minutes to an hour, so that when you're here, you're not spending your time figuring out where you're going. You've already got an itinerary in your head. Boom, you can go. With the websites like Rate Beer and Beer Advocate, I go there to look up beers when I can't remember the name or who made it. I mean, it's not just a rating website anymore. It's a beer encyclopedia.
It's an information hub.
It is. It totally is. And it's great because my brain just doesn't work the way it used to 30 or so years ago. I can't remember half of what I need. But if I can look it up on the internet and, I got my smartphone in my hand, I can save my butt in 2 minutes and not look like a complete fool.
So, Tim, let me tell you, it's my opinion that so there's a little bit of a way around the hop shortage, right? Because not every beer needs to be an IPA. I think that we're going to see more breweries exploring beers that don't necessarily require them to have a huge hop presence, right? Like, for example, one of your best sellers, actually, as we were talking earlier, one of your flagship beers is your Creek, your Cherry Creek.
Right.
That beer doesn't have I like to assume it doesn't have a huge hop profile.
That beer, 10 barrels of that beer has 1 pound of German Magnum for bittering, and that's it.
There you go. So I think that we're going to, if indeed the hop shortage is real and it starts to become a problem, I think that we're going to see more breweries start brewing beers of that nature, or we may see breweries brewing like maybe bigger stouts or like some old ales or some barley wines, right? Mm-hmm. But not using popular hops for the bittering aspect of it, right? Because if you're just using it for bittering, you can use a high alpha acid, obscure hop that's readily available to get basically the same end product. So I think there are ways around it, right?
There's a ton of things that you can do, and I think what it's going to do, if in fact there does become a hop shortage, it's going to force a lot of breweries, especially smaller breweries like myself, to be more creative. And the only people that are going to benefit from that is the craft beer drinkers trying new styles. I mean, you see the explosion of Gozas, historic styles that haven't been around for years. Though that's breweries trying to create a niche, trying to create some different styles. So that they're standing out in a huge crowded market. I think we'll all be the benefit of that.
Yeah. Well, there's a fact too that I think one of the most important things that small craft brewers like you and and even some larger breweries did that I think it's important for craft brewers, like you guys took the time to educate your customer. And that reflected on a really well-educated customer base. Every time I walk into a brewery right now, more and more, I can have actually a fairly good conversation with my fellow beer drinkers. I don't know about you. Don't you think this is like very beneficial for craft beer, having an educated customer coming to your door and drinking your beer and appreciating what you do and being able to drink other styles? I mean, the hop heads are the majority still, but I think there's a lot of people learning to appreciate other styles, like you just mentioned, Gozas and some ancient style beers and stuff.
I think it's a huge benefit. The knowledge of even the average craft beer drinker, when they come in and you start up a conversation with them, what kind of beers do you like? What's the last beer that you had that you really liked, and why? And you can have a couple hour conversation around. Just started that way. You can walk into a craft brewery solo and spend 2 hours talking to the other patrons at the bar, because we're all sharing the same subject, beer. And I think it also is beneficial to the craft breweries that are paying attention, because it keeps us honest, keeps us on our toes, makes us keep our quality up, because we're not going to be able to pass a beer, a bad beer off and with a phony description or something. We've got to stay on our toes on our quality. We've got to keep putting out the best product that we can day after day, because craft beer drinkers we've got to stay honest and stay strong.
Yeah, definitely. So, craft beer, Denver, GABF. What are you pouring?
We are pouring our Strange Pale. I don't usually submit a pale or IPA because there's always like 250 other entries. But the Strange Pale was drinking really well this year, and a lot of my regulars said, you better submit this. So we'll send it in, and it's fun because we can pour it at the festival. And that's a popular beer. It's 4.8%. It's gluten reduced. It's the first beer we ever brewed at Strange. So we'll be pouring the Strange Pale. We'll be pouring our Maibach German lager, spring lager. That was 5 weeks in the fermenter, 5 weeks in the bright tank. It's about a 7%, pretty hop forward, pretty malty, 7% beer that we brewed with in collaboration with Bierstadt that just opened here in the last couple of months. We're pouring our Cherry Creek. That's one of our top two favorites. We didn't submit it this year for judging. We submitted the Watermelon Hefe instead. That was tasting pretty good. In July, we'll see how it holds up with judging in October. We submitted our Dr. Strangelove barley wine. That's got GABF bronze and a World Beer Cup bronze, but the latest batch is tasting pretty good. So we sent that in. We're not going to pour that. We'll pour our breakfast grapefruit IPA, which is our number one seller. That was a One Barrel Wednesday. I just wanted to make a hoppy, citrusy beer back in 2012. Now it's our number one seller. So, One Barrel Wednesdays work sometimes. And the last beer that we're pouring is the one you mentioned earlier, the Nebulous Pale, the smash beer. We brewed a 1 barrel of that for a festival that Oscar Blues was putting on, Southern Hemisphere Festival. So we brewed it with Patagonia base malt from Chile and Galaxy hops from Australia. Fermented it with Westmalle yeast from Belgium. And it's pretty complex for a single malt, single hop. So we'll submit that one as well, and we'll pour that one. 5 beers. Going to be fun. We'll be in the Meet the Brewer section. I'll be there every night, except when I have to run to the men's room.
Well,
they give me one break a night, 5 minutes, and that's usually when everybody that I wanted to see shows up all at the same time.
Yeah, they think that the breweries have easy going into those things, but man, you're handing the tap for 3-4 hours. It can get very long, very quick. Right?
The hardest part for me is I lose my voice from talking to everybody. And over 4 sessions, so 4.5 hour sessions, by the last day, I can barely talk, and it takes me about a week to get the voice back. But it's worth it because all I'm doing is talking about our beers.
Yeah, that's easy.
I get all excited about it. It's my wife and my kids get cracked up because I get so excited. But come on, it's beer.
Outside of GABF, do you guys have any other festivals that you're going to be pouring at here, or is
we're going to be pouring this Saturday? We have our annual Fresh Hop Festival that is put on by Falling Rock Tap House. You're going to get a chance to taste 40 or 50 fresh hop beers, not just IPAs and pales. There's a bunch of different styles of beer that get fresh hop out there. And one day, hit all of those. That's one of my favorite festivals of the year. And then coming up in January, always big beers, Belgians, and barley wines. It's up. Used to be up in Vail. This year it's gonna be up in Breckenridge. So 9,000 feet, you're drinking an average 9, 10, 11% beers for the whole weekend. It's a great time.
I bet it is. And you mentioned you guys just released I think today, your pumpkin porter, right?
Yes, that's our fall seasonal.
Do you have any?
Just so we can see it one more time. There it is.
There you go.
There you go. Something the headless horseman right there.
Think about pumpkin.
That's right.
Any other releases coming up in the next month or so that you wanted to?
The next one that we're going to be coming out with right around the beginning of November, we'll come out with our gingerbread man. That is a gingerbread cookie in a glass. We serve that one. That's our holiday seasonal. That one's pretty ridiculous. That's Grandma's gingerbread cookie in beer form.
Man.
I took her recipe and I turned it into a beer.
Well, you're a smart man. So with that, we would like to thank you so much for spending just a slither of your time with us. We're in this for the beer. We that's our passion. That's our hobby. And people like you guys are our heroes, right? You guys make this thing that we are passionate about, and we appreciate every time, any one of you guys can spend some time just to speak with us a little bit about what it is exactly that you do, the uniqueness of your shop, and we just want to extend a million thanks to you and wish you nothing but the best of luck with everything that you guys have on the horizon. I hope you get to 1,200 barrels soon.
Yeah. And really props to your staff there. I had a great time. People were very friendly at the bar.
We've been truly blessed with the people that we have working there. We're really lucky to have such great people working there. We're a small brewery. There's 9 of us total, and everybody works their butts off, and it makes a huge difference. There's no way I can do this on my own, and everybody gets equal credit for all of it.
Well, that's the way to go. I mean, the success of your brewery is dependent upon, there are a lot of factors, but 2 of the main ones are your customers and the people who work there, because those are the people who interact with the customers. So, kudos to you for keeping those 2 components first and, doing it the right way. So we appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Randy, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about beer. I wish this was like a 2-hour show. I could just keep going, but thank you, and hopefully we can pick up the conversation when you get to Denver next week, and we'll just keep talking beer again. That's
absolutely the plan. Gil, do we have anybody on next week? Next Thursday? I won't be here, so
yeah, I think we're speaking because of JBF. We have Jack Yo's the week after, but I think we're just doing like a free for all. I didn't want to schedule anybody else. JBF I was surprised Tim decided to pick this date because he's probably running around his own self right now to get ready. But
this is the calm before the storm. Everything starts tomorrow. This is my last day. But come on, it's beer. Let's talk about beer.
Awesome. There you go. Yeah, so 2 weeks from now, Jack Yo's.
No, actually, no. We're open. So we're open next week, and then the week after that, we have Trillium, and then Jack Yo's.
Oh, okay.
So October 13th, be sure to come back and join us. That's going to be a lot of fun, especially for us East Coast people who are drinking all these New England IPAs. We will be having I hope I say JC's last name right. JC Tetrault from Trillium Brewing Company. He's the owner. He will be on with us in 2 weeks on October 13th. So huge thanks to you, Tim, and for everybody. Until next time, find some great friends, find some great beer, and mind those P's and Q's.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Ken.